So in this tutorial we're going to go over conic sections, and from what we're able to see here is we've got a cone. So we can cut this cone in different ways, and the result is what we are going to refer to as conic sections. So if we get to take just the base of the cone, there we have got a circle, and so circle is one of the conic sections. And the same one which we have here, if we get to cut it in a slant way like this, and then we get to view from the top, we are going to get something that is going to be like this, and such is what we call an ellipse. Or at the same time, when we get to cut this, we are able to find something that is going to appear like this. It's going to appear like this when we get to cut it. Okay, so something that appears like this is going to be called an hyperbola. At the same time, we are able to cut this same cone, and we are going to get something which looks like this. This is called a parabola, more just a quadratic. So these are the conic sections, and in this tutorial we're going to concentrate on an ellipse, how to get to sketch it, and also how to work out some things on it. Alright, so the general equation for an ellipse is x squared divided by a squared plus y squared divided by b squared, and this is equal to 1. So one thing, it should always be equal to 1, and again we have got a plus here. It should always be a plus between x squared over a squared and y squared and b squared. If we change the sign here, it's no longer an ellipse, it's going to be an hyperbola. Right, now these values which you are able to see down here, they are the ones which are going to give us the axis, or where the graph is going to reach. Let's say, for example, what we've been given is, since we've already seen the general form, let's say we have been given x squared divided by 4 plus y squared divided by 9, and this is equal to 1. And we want to sketch this graph of this ellipse. So firstly, if we get to see on top we only have x squared and y squared, the meaning of that is that this graph has got the center at the point 0, 0. What you do is just get this equate to 0. X equated to 0 give us 0. Y equated to 0 give us also 0. Meaning that the center is at the point 0, 0. So when we get to look at this number which is below x, remember it should be in the form a squared. So we write 4 as a square, that will give us 2 squared, meaning that a is equal to 2. And when we get to write 9 as a square, we're going to get 3 squared, meaning that b is what? B is going to be equal to 3. So in this case, what we are going to take is this: the a should always be greater than b, meaning that I can also say b squared here and then a squared here, just depending with which one is bigger. So the one which is bigger should always be the a. So meaning that we are going to say this is a and then this is b. So necessarily we are not saying that a is always the one which is under x squared. So what we want to make is that a should be greater than b. Alright, or in this case we can say let b be greater than a, like that. It doesn't make any difference. Okay, or I mean b be greater than a, like this, since I wanted to say a less than b. Okay, now we can be able to sketch this. Now we always need to take the positive and the negative of this value, positive and negative. Now we can see that a was under x squared, meaning that this is going to be along the x-axis. Okay, so we have found that a, the number which was below x was 4, meaning that from there we got a 2, because 4 is 2 squared. So we get the positive and the negative for 2, that will give us positive 2 here and negative 2 here. So these are the axes. Okay, so we have got a coordinate here and also a coordinate here. And then we go to this one, we found the 3. So we'll get the positive and the negative. So for 3, we are going to go on top there and we are going to come below here, negative 3. So this is also the axis. Now, since we know that 3 is bigger than 2, so that means that 3 is the major so from here up to the end there where there's negative 3, that's the major axis, and then from here up to there, that's the minor axis. Now we can just get to connect these points and we should be as smooth as we can. So this is the graph of this ellipse, x squared divided by 4 plus y squared divided by 9. And so from here we can find the vertices. So we have, the vertices are simply the ends where the ellipse is turning. Those are the ends. So we have got these vertices at these two ends, and then we have got these two at the two ends. So we call them major vertices and minor vertices. So when you get to see the number below y squared is bigger, meaning that the major vertices are going to be on the y-axis. So the major vertices for this one, so we can see the x value along the y-axis is 0. So it's going to be 0, comma, plus or minus 3, because that's the y value. And then the minor vertices, we can see we have got either positive or negative 2, but the y value along the x-axis is 0. So this is the major and the minor vertice. Now we also can be able to find the foci. Alright, so the foci is just c units from the center. How many units from the center are you moving? It's more like the focal point. So for us to be able to determine the foci, what you do is we're going to consider the major axis. So the major axis is this one in this case, because the bigger number was below y. Right, so for us to be able to determine this axis, so we are saying since the major axis is along the y, meaning that the foci is going to be 0, comma, positive or negative c. So it's simply c units from the center, and it should be along the major axis. Now, how do we get to find this same c that we are talking about as being the foci? Well, c, you get it by using more like the Pythagoras theorem, except you don't add. So c squared is given by that major value, that bigger value. So in this case, the number which is bigger, okay, just these two values that we found, the a and the b. Now you get the one which is bigger. In this case, b is bigger, so you say b squared, then minus a squared. This is how you find c for the ellipse. So in this case, c squared is going to be, so we found that b was 3 squared minus a was 2 squared. So this is going to give 3 squared is a 9, 4 squared, 2 squared is a 4, 9 minus 4, that is a 5. So c is going to give us positive or negative square root of 5, meaning that the foci is going to be 0, comma, positive or negative square root of 5. So this is the foci for this ellipse, and that is how we are able to find it. Well, let's look at another example. So let's say we have got now x squared divided by let me say x squared divided by 25 plus y squared divided by 16 is equal to 1. How are we able to sketch this one, finding also the vertices and also the foci? So firstly, the number beneath x squared, since we can see this one is bigger than this one, so let's give the bigger one as a. And so we know that we're supposed to write it in the form x squared over a squared, meaning that if we express 25 as a squared, a is going to be what? A is going to be equal to 5, because we know that if we square this will still give us a 25, meaning that a is equal to 5. And then from here, b is going to give us what? The square root of 16, that is a 4. That is a b. Right. So now we can be able to sketch this graph. Okay, so here we have got the number which was below x squared was the 25, from where we got a 5. So we're going to write positive 5 and a negative 5. The one which was below y squared was a 4. So we're going to write a 4 and a negative 4. So you always take the negative and the positive of these two values that you have found and simply connect these points and do them. Make sure that you are as smooth as possible. So this is what we are getting as our ellipse. Now from here, what are our vertices? So starting with the major vertices, we can see now the major one is going to be along the x, because that is where we have got a greater range of values. So it is positive or negative 5, comma 0. And then the minor vertices, that will be now along the y. So of course we know that on the y, the x coordinate is always 0. And then the y coordinates, that will be positive or negative, the same 4. And then now we also find the foci. Now since the major vertices or the major axis is the x-axis, meaning that the foci is going to be positive or negative c and then comma 0, right? Because our major axis is the x-axis, that's why it will be along the x. Okay, and how do we get to find the c? C is given by the bigger number squared minus the smaller number squared, and so this is going to be the bigger number, which is a, that we found as 5 squared minus 4 squared. 5 squared is a 25, 4 squared is a 16. That is going to give us a 9. And the square root of 9, since we have got c squared, is going to give us a 3, meaning that the foci is going to be positive or negative 3, comma 0. So this is the foci for this one, and that is how we get to sketch conic sections. Now what if we transform this one, we add or subtract something from the x squared and from the y squared? How does it become now? So let's say we have got x minus 3 squared divided by, say, divided by a 4 plus, we can say y plus 2, let's say, divided by a 9, and this is equal to 1. So basically what has changed, because we have added and subtracted something on these 2 points, is supposed to be squared, we have changed the center. So the center will no longer be at 0, 0. Why? Because when we equate this, it will not give us 0. Okay, let's equate what is inside here to 0. We are going to find that x is equal to 3. When we equate this one to 0, we are going to find that y is equal to negative 2. Meaning that the center for this ellipse is now at 3, negative 2. Okay. Now still, so this one is bigger than the 4, meaning that our a is going to be the square root of 9, that is a 3. And then our b is going to be the square root of 4, that is a 2. Okay, now we can be able to sketch this one. So here is the x and there is the y. So along the x-axis we are going to have a positive 2 and a negative 2y because the 4 was below x squared. Along the y we are going to have positive 3 and also a negative 3 because the 9 was below the y squared. Okay, so we're supposed to connect these values. Now, the way I've written it like this, we'll not sketch it the same way we did for the previous one like that. Why won't we do that? Because the center is no longer at 0, 0. So again, I'm going to remove these values. Okay, the center is no longer at 0, 0. Let me just get to increase the length of my graph. All right, can put it like that. So in this case, the first thing that we are going to be able to put on our graph is the center. And the center is at 3, negative 2. Let me say this is a 3 and then a negative 2 is here. So the center is going to be at this point. So for us to know the vertices or where we are going to end, from the center we are going to be adding and subtracting these values that we have. Okay, now the x value of the center is a 3. So the number that we found from the number which was below x squared was a 2. So meaning that from the x value, which is the 3 of the center, we are going to add and subtract a 2. So 3 plus 2, that is going to give us a 5. So we are going to come here. So it should be straight. And then again, 3 minus 2, that is going to give us a 1. So it will be somewhere here. And then I'm going to also move in the y direction. So that is just on the center, going up and coming down. Now for the y, we found a 3 because we had 9 below y. So to the y value, which is negative 2, we're going to be adding 3 and subtracting 3. So negative 2 plus 3, that is going to give us a positive 1. So let's say positive 1 is here. So we're going to have a point here. And then negative 2 minus 3, we are going to have a negative 5. So negative 5 is going to be somewhere here. So we are going to have a point there. So these are the ones now we are going to be able to connect. So going in that direction, from here making a 10, it should be as smooth as possible so that it will just be looking nice. So our conic section is going to look something more like this. Okay. Though it's not very good here. Well, I'm drawing with a pen here, so it's very difficult to be that smooth. But let me try to be a bit of smooth. Okay, something like this is how it's going to look like. So because the number below y was bigger, meaning that the major vertices will be along the y. And that is going to be what? Of course, we know that the x value is... Now, the x value will no longer be 0 because we've changed the center. So the x value will be that x value on the center. So the x value is going to be what? A 3, right? For the major vertice, comma. How far are we going up? How far are we going up? So we are going as far as... So I'm just going to write the y value of the center also. That's negative 2, right? And we are saying to negative 2 we are adding or subtracting that value that we found when we we got the square root of the number below. That is, we're adding or subtracting 3. This is the major vertices. And then the minor vertices, we always get first the x value. Okay. Now, to the x value, we can see we are moving, going this direction and this direction. So I've got the x value of the center, which is the 3. We are adding and subtracting the value that we got when we square rooted 4. So we're adding and subtracting a 2. So this far ends here. This is the what? The minor vertices. Now, comma, the y value is that same value of the what? Of the center. It's not changing. We can see the y value is not changing. We are only changing the x values. We are moving like this. We are not changing the y values. So it's still negative to the same value of the center, just like we didn't change the x value of the center here. So this is going to be the major and the minor vertices. Alright, we can also find the foci. Now same, the foci, we can see that the major axis is along the what? The y, because the number which was big was 9. So meaning that the x value is going to be the same. Now instead of it being 0, we get x value of the center. The x value of the center here is what? Is a 3. Okay, and then comma. So we are going to still say comma positive or negative c. But how do you find c? We said c squared is given by a squared minus b squared. Now the a and the b, these are simply the same values that we have found from these numbers which are below here, right? So meaning that this is going to be, we get first the bigger one, which is, we found a 3, we square it. We get the smaller one, we found a 2, squared. 3 squared is a 9. 2 squared is a 4. So that is going to give us c being equal to positive or negative square root of 5. Right? Now, we are also going to include the y value of the, so before I even get to write the positive or negative, we are going to include the y value of the what? Or just the point of the point where we have got the center. So basically what we are doing is just writing the center. Okay, like the reason as to why for these others we are saying 0 comma something is because the center is 0 comma 0. So if you find that c is 5, you're going to say positive or negative 5, so it will just be 5 here, positive or negative 5, because if you add to 0 anything or subtract it will just be the same one. So we've just basically written the center. Now because the major axis is along the y, so that's why to the y we're going to say plus or minus that c that we have found, and we have found square root of 5. So this is going to be the foci. So if the major axis was along the x, we would have still written the center, but to 3 would have said plus or minus square root of 5 and then comma negative 2 if the major axis was along the x. Alright, so this is how you get to work it out in this way. Now just the last question as we conclude. So at times they can give you something that you have to get to complete the squares and determine what type of conic section it is. So we also need to know how to do that. It can come. Alright, so firstly here what I have is, we have been given the equation 9x squared plus 16y squared is equal to 144. We want to find the foci of this one here. Okay, want to find the foci of this one. Now how are we able to do that? We should first express this conic section or this ellipse in the general form, that is x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared is equal to 1, meaning that we need to express it, the denominator should be a 1, right? So how are we going to be able to do that? So for the only way we can make this not a denominator being equal to 1 but this side of the equation being equal to 1, the only way we can do that is dividing both sides by 144. Okay, so from here we can 9 can go into 144, so we're going to have x squared divided by 16. 16 can also go into 144, we're going to have y squared divided by 9, that is going to be equal to 1. So we can see that this is an ellipse. So the foci, and for this ellipse we can see we don't have anything added there, meaning that the center is at 0, 0. And we can see that 16 is bigger than 9, meaning that the major axis is the x-axis. So the foci is going to be what? You always get, if you get to square root this, this is going to be 4 squared minus you square root this, that would be 3 squared, that is going to be 6 squared. 4 squared is a 16 minus 3 squared is a 9, that is going to give us a 7. So that is going to be positive or negative square root of 7, which is going to be equal to c, meaning that the foci is going to be positive or negative square root of 7 comma 0, because that's the center. So this is going to be the foci for this one, and we can actually sketch it. So to be moving between positive or negative 4 and positive or negative 3 for the y. Thank you so much for watching the video. Stay blessed.